Okay, hi everybody. It's about a week later now, and I had something important I wanted to say to you a week ago. There are these. I was getting a little mixed up with my numbers, so I want to try to straighten that out. These are the foundational facts of the New World religion. They have to do with the fact of God, man's relationship to God, the fact of immortality and eternal persistence, the continuity of revelation and the divine approaches. And to those, two more were added: the fact of our relationship with each other and the fact of the path to God. And I thought perhaps that 9 were added to that, but that had to do more with the foundational approaches to the new group of world servers. And so the place where the 9 are added is up here, and we went over it before. The sense of individual responsibility, the expression of real love and service, and the reorganizing of life so as to get the utmost out of every day, plus the spirit of goodwill. And then following that, to these first 4 steps regarding the new group of world servers. Let's see, how does it say here? These are 4, yes, here it is. Okay. So it is essential that we be practical in our approach. This is page 381 to the subject, and that the reconstruction plans involve steps which are possible for the average man to take. So the 4 steps, as they're listed here, actually he summarizes them: the sense of individual responsibility, the expression of real love and service, the reorganizing of life so as to get the utmost out of every day, and the sense of goodwill. And to these 9 are added. And these are the 9 here that we find on page 382. And these are instructions, what to do, that he gave to his group. Study and reflect the many proposals made. Get together, gather people together to discuss the coming world order. Extend your interest to many countries. Pray constantly, and to your prayers add meditation and reflection. Find 2 other people to work with you. There is a unique potency in this triple relationship. Find out and study the methods and techniques of the various groups and organizations which are interested in world construction. See, this is all about world construction. Find and keep a record of all the men and women of goodwill. Above everything else, plan definitely for the rehabilitation, physical, psychological, and spiritual, of the children of every nation. And I think there's a 9th somewhere here. Yes, begin to lay aside small sums which can be dedicated to this goal. Okay, so that's where the 4 items plus the 9 items occur, and I was trying to add 9 items to this foundation of the New World religion, which was not the case. Okay, it's certainly possible to get lost in all these things, and I'm sorry if I have. I think you'll have a copy of this so that it will help, be oriented. Help you be oriented. Help me be oriented. Because now we're dealing with the New World religion, and we're dealing with the foundational, those 6 that I just read out. These are the truths which have stood the test for the ages. The other one was how to work in the age of Reconstruction, 4 plus 9. And here we have 4 plus 2 more, and maybe there are a few more. But anyway, as I said earlier, the foundations of the New World religion, what do we have? The fact of God, man's relationship to God, the fact of immortality and eternal persistence, the continuity of revelation and the divine approaches. And then he adds two more to these: the fact of our relationship to each other and the fact of the path to God. So I hope that clarifies any misunderstanding that I was trying to force upon you, thinking that 9 had to be added to both of them, when in fact it is not the case. We've been talking about the great approaches of the divine to the human kingdom, and and that we analyze quite carefully: the approach of the human soul, and then the approach of the hierarchy. And we're really going to have a third approach now. It's still the hierarchy, a third grade approach. Here it is. It's an approach, a period of radiation, as it's sometimes called. A period of ingathering is now possible. Now, sometimes these periods of radiation are dealt with in a different way, as if the Buddha's mission was an important one, the Christ's earlier mission an important one, and now comes a third. And we're not talking so much about the individualization process, nor are we talking about hierarchy's first great approach to humanity. Those were monumental, and these others are occurring more in the modern era, starting from about 500 or 600 BC. The Buddha's period of radiation or ingathering, the Christ's period of radiation or ingathering, and now yet another. And it will be the most important. So perhaps and that's what we're helping with at this time. So I'd like to make sure that you have this document, in which I'm making all different kinds of colors. Forgive me for that. It's just, I thought it would be a way of staying very clear. Okay, the word goes forth to the initiates and of the future: lose sight of self in group endeavor, forget self in group activity, pass through the portal of initiation in group formation. Let the personality life be lost in the group life. It is the age of the group. The coming age of Aquarius is the age of the group. And we will see all kinds of advancement because of that. I'm just reviewing quickly because, I've been away from it for about a week. The Buddha's method, he taught accepted discipleship, basically, but he taught more than that because many of his students were becoming arhats, so he had a very select group in one way. The method was detachment, dispassion, and discrimination. These are these mnemonics, beginning with the same letter. And the Christ his work came built upon the foundation of the Buddha's approach: individualism, initiation, and identification. And I went through different ones of these associated with, beginning from Scorpio, illumination, Sagittarius, inspiration, Aquarius, Capricorn, initiation, Aquarius, I put this one in myself, inclusion or universalization, and then Pisces, identification. We do need these mnemonics. I just want to say that memorization is an important part of learning the ageless wisdom. Maybe the old days, it used to be too much, and everybody, let's just say they had to learn by rote. But we can go too far in the other direction too. We need these ancient landmarks emblazoned in our consciousness, and the way to do that is memorization. The third ray is the Lord of Memory, and let's just say that whatever the second ray can do is built upon the foundation, built upon the the work of the third ray. Here again are these 6 aspects of the New World Religion, the foundation of them. And, well, let's see what else we have here. There are 3 more fundamental truths. So what do we have here? We have here 4 plus 2 plus 3 for the fundamental truths of the New World Religion. And I guess I will just somehow indicate that that's what's happening and hope that it is clear. This is one time it might be better to have a book in front of me than a computer. Okay, so the demonstrated existence of the spiritual hierarchy. This is okay, as a matter of fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put these 6, here are 6, and there seems to be 3 more. Okay, so right here are the 6, and 3 more are to be added. The demonstrated existence of the spiritual hierarchy, the life purpose of which is the good of humanity. Then number 2, the development of the science of invocation and evocation as a means of approaching divinity. It goes on beyond prayer and meditation. It is the new and coming science, okay? And the realization that the starry heavens, the solar system, and the planetary spheres are all of them the manifestations of the great spiritual lives. So basically, we don't have that 9 there. We have 6 plus 3 equals 9. These are the foundations of the New World Religion. So I hope I've spent a little time now clarifying that, and the 4 to which the 9 are added and have to do with reconstruction. Okay. And otherwise, as the foundation of the New World Religion, we have 4 plus 2 plus 3 equals 9. All right, that's been bothering me, and I don't really have a way to edit all this right now, so this is a little review. 1, the 13 points needed for reconstruction, and the other 9 points, the 9 points needed to look at the foundation of the New World Religion. Now we're ready to begin, and we are working on program number 41, and today is the 12th of March. Okay, wait a second. Let me go back here. This is XX. So here it is, the 12th of March. That's the date, and we're on page 418, and we don't know how many hours we have, but we'll come to that a little later, maybe not too long. All right. Now, I'm going to bring this down into a manageable size. It's quite big right now. Okay, we'll do it that way, and maybe this way. Okay. In considering our second point, we just added 3 points to the foundation of the New World Religion. We had the, come on now. I don't know why this is not working. All right, let's just say we do it this way. All right. We had these 6 points, and to them we added 3, and the second point that we added was the development of the science of invocation and evocation. And now he's going to elaborate a little bit about that. Okay. In considering our second point, the science of invocation and evocation, we are also moving forward into the area of mental understanding. You know, it's a very Mercurian thing. Mercury is a great star of mentality. Its monadic ray ultimately is probably the third and maybe secondarily the fifth. I've come into that theory of a ray for the monad on the monadic plane and a ray, one of the three principal rays for the monad on the logoic plane, when it is more the liberated monad, liberated into the Father, the Son, or the Holy Ghost, three sort of sub-logoi, we might say, sub-logoi to the solar logos. Okay. We are also moving forward into the area of mental understanding. The grasping nature of many of the prayers of men, based as they are upon desire or something, you know, it's quite tangible usually, has long disturbed the intelligent. The vagueness of the meditation taught and practiced in the East and the West, and its emphatically selfish note, personal liberation and personal knowledge, are likewise causing a revolt. The demand today is for group work, group good, group knowledge, group contact with the, let's see what do we have here, with the divine, group salvation, group understanding, and group relationship to God and the spiritual hierarchy. And all this indicates progress. Okay. Indeed, that's the case. And let's make that just a little bit bigger, as is our usual method. So two methods. The, let's just say, whoa, that's not it. All right. I'm going to settle down here very shortly into a nice, easy rhythm. Let's just say two methods are causing disquiet. The grasping nature for something as practiced in the West and the selfish pursuit of liberation as practiced in the East. Yes, and there's as practiced. Right. Okay. At this point, it should be useful to repeat part of what I said elsewhere concerning future developments along this line. So this is from the Reappearance of the Christ, page 152 to 159. This new invocative work will be the keynote of the coming world religion and will fall into two parts. There will be the invocative work of the masses of people trained by the spiritually minded people of the world, working in the churches whenever possible, under an enlightened clergy. You know, so this is really the future, isn't it? Because we don't have that yet. We still have the old orthodoxy in so many places. Under an enlightened clergy, to accept the fact of the approaching spiritual energies focused through the spiritual hierarchy and to voice their spiritual demand for light, liberation, and understanding. Well, okay, this is what we want to see, and we're beginning that kind of work with people even now. And I think it's certainly not beyond the intelligence of the younger people who need to be open to some new method of relating to the divine other than the method they've been given, which seems at this time so outworn. Sometimes on television, you know, I see the programs of church services, okay? And I think it's very good they broadcast all that, and it is meant for certain people who really can relate to that method of service. But it is, very old. And all of these three religions, the present form of Christianity, the present form of Islam, the present form of Judaism, to speak of the three Abrahamic religions, they are very old. And new possibilities have to be offered of a much more scientific nature. And this is where the fifth ray of Aquarius really comes into expression. Right now, we don't have fifth ray religions at all. The factor of science, the study of energy, the attraction and distribution of energy, none of that is really in there. We pray, we worship, we receive, we repent, we do all those old things. It's okay. For many years as a choir director, I often joke, that I was born in the age of Aries, under the Jewish dispensation. And then as a choir director for maybe, I don't know, 10, 15, even 20 years, I went through the age of Pisces and learned what quite a number of churches were talking about and listened to hundreds and hundreds of sermons. Okay. So part of my training, I guess. And then now into the age of Aquarius. Hopefully, we can all be forerunners of those greater possibilities which are being offered to us. But it takes a long time to break down the present patterns which seem to perpetuate themselves and which people are afraid to leave. Some people think, if they leave it, they'll go to hell or they won't be saved or they won't go to paradise, whatever. Obviously, it's a very um, naive idea of what the self actually is. Okay, but onward. The masses of people can be trained in a certain way. Okay, and the enlightened clergy can do that. And in the New World religion, as it will gradually develop, this will be done. And even now, in our full moon approaches and new moon approaches, we are attempting to do this. There will also be trained scientific work of appeal and invocation as practiced by those who have trained their minds through right meditation, who know the uses of sound, of formulas, and of invocation, and who can work consciously, focusing the invocative cry of the masses, just as the Christ did with respect to the three lords of liberation, thank goodness, focusing the invocative cry of the masses, and at the same time using certain great formulas of words, which will later be given to the race as the Lord's Prayer was given by the Christ and the great invocation has been given in this day and age. So obviously, along the invocative line, there is more of a scientific nature which is destined to appear. And the trained people, the esoterically inclined, the students of esotericism, will utilize these methods and will help lift up the invocative cry of the masses so that their invocation does the most good. Now, maybe in his coming writings, the Tibetan will be speaking more about this. It took 30 years to work with Alice Bailey, and that's just in the last incarnation. They were connected well before that and had built up some kind of very strong and effective mental rapport, which made mental telepathy under Mercury and under Gemini a possibility between them. So, let's see who is the amanuensis. Even though we have all of these technological wonders for us at the moment, involving the computer revolution, I do think the Tibetan will need a flesh and blood human being on the physical plane to at least keep things in order and edit them. It may be, of course, a faster process because fewer mistakes will be involved and it will be possible to correct mistakes much faster. So we're really on the cusp of that, and the work that we're trying to do together now is to be as maximally aware of what the Tibetan is given as possible, and to assimilate it to good effect and wise application as may be possible for us. We never can do all, never, but we can do something, and we can do an increased amount to make available to humanity this great teaching. This new religious science, for which prayer, meditation, and ritual have laid the foundation, will train its students to present at certain stated periods throughout the year the voice demand of the people of the world for the relationship with God and for each other. This is really important. So, there will be certain times when there will be the direction of the invocation of humanity toward the hierarchy, and maybe, who knows, toward Shambhala in a very focused way. He's foreseeing what the New World religion will really be all about. And I think that, there are many of us who are interested in this because this is the way of really linking humanity with divinity, and that link with hierarchy is so important. And this is the place from which what we normally call divinity emanates. Of course, we cannot forget Shambhala, but our first task is to link directly with hierarchy and be infused by the great, we can call it the great soul of humanity, the hierarchy, the heart center of our planet. This work, when rightly carried forward, will evoke response from the waiting hierarchy. Through this response, the belief of the masses will gradually be changed into the conviction of the knowers. In this way, humanity will be transformed and spiritualized. Wow. Amazing. It's so exciting in a way, that how the plan is ready to unfold, and hierarchy has this in their minds and hearts, and how we as disciples have to get it as well and pass on in a very reasonable way the good news. Then will begin, as the ages pass away, the regeneration of material nature, with the two spiritual centers, hierarchy and humanity, working together in full consciousness and understanding, and the kingdom of God will be functioning on earth. And note that somehow this will take ages, in fact. The ages. So this is, let's understand, this is not a short-term process, and what he calls ages will be involved as the ages pass away. So it seems that when hierarchy makes its appearance, there will be no hurry for hierarchy to leave again. And maybe there will not be some kind of, that it will indicate some kind of victory, really, for humanity, and that there will not be, immediately anyway, another war between the lords of the dark face and the lords of the shining countenance, and hierarchy can stay and work with humanity in such a way to really regenerate the materiality of our planet, which is, I think, one of the main focuses, of what has to be done on this planet, as we seem to have absorbed a great deal of the moonshine energy and of the energy of the first solar system. So, certainly when we talk about plans, hierarchy has in its mind something far greater than we can ever suppose without the help of these texts, which inform us about these possibilities. It will be apparent to you that I can indicate only the broad, general outlines of the New World religion. The expansion of the human consciousness, which will take place as a result of the coming great approach, will enable man to grasp not only his relation to the spiritual life of our planet, the one in whom we live and move and have our being, but will also give him a glimpse of the relation of our planet to the planetary lives moving within the orbit of the sun and the still greater circle of spiritual influences which contact our solar system as it pursues its orbit in the heavens. Yes, as it pursues. The whole solar system is pursuing a kind of an orbit. Now that's you could overlook what's being said there. I almost did. And this is our solar system and the other suns that are associated with it in the 7 solar systems, of which ours is one, as it pursues its orbit. Okay, I'll read this again, I think. It's a long sentence. This expansion of the human consciousness, which will take place as a result of the coming great approach, the illumination which hierarchy will bring, shall we say, will enable man to grasp not only his relation to the spiritual life of our planet, the one in whom we live and move and have our being, but will also give him, the disciple, the initiate, a glimpse of the relation of our planet to the circle of planetary lives moving within the orbit of the sun, and the still greater circle of the spiritual influences which contact our solar system as it pursues its orbit in the heavens. So, okay, well, I'm going to make those bigger and, do the usual here. And let's just say, and, I'll put it down that note that our solar system also has its orbit. And I would say accompanied by 6 other major solar systems. Whoops, that's the 7 solar systems, of which ours is one. Solar systems, okay. And here, astro. Okay, so here we speak of the 7 solar systems, of which ours is one. So astronomically, we will be learning something new. Right now we study sort of the anatomy of the skies. We don't study these matters in a psycho-spiritual sense. We study, what materials they may be made of and the different stars and the different parts of the spectrum to which they are related, the different kinds of light they give off. We study all those externals, and they are important, and maybe they come first, but there's going to be a psycho-spiritual study of these gods in the heavens. I mean, every planet, every star, every grouping of stars, and on and on. They are gods of ascending orders of intelligence, love, and power. So the hierarchical nature of our universe and of the beings and deities and their physical expressions in our universe, that hierarchical nature will be studied and their qualities will be known. Right now we're told even it's just a passing sentence around page 1084, somewhere in there, of Cosmic Fire, but it definitely tells us that the hierarchy knows the qualities of some of these galaxies. And, what do we know about that? Nothing. But, they are identified by various symbols, and we have the Milky Way galaxy. What is this quality? major quality. There's the neighboring Andromeda galaxy. What is its quality? Obviously, there's some kind of binary going on, some kind of marriage between our galaxy and the Milky and the Andromeda galaxy. And is one of them in a what we might call on that very high level a masculine or assertive um, incarnation, and the other in a more feminine incarnation? I mean, these are things way, way beyond us, but we can expect that we will be learning about these factors. Astronomical and astrological investigation, he says, demonstrated this relationship and the influences exerted, but there is still speculation and much foolish claiming and interpretation. Yet the church is, yeah, well, it's the importance of the zodiac, really. Zodiac of constellations and their representative areas of effective influence surrounding every planet and every sun within their range. So there is a relationship with the zodiac, and some people have speculated. Look, the zodiac itself, zodiac of constellations, is itself moving in some kind of fairly circular manner. There are a lot of difficulties as one tries to work that all out, and the distances of stars have much to do with those difficulties. But suffice it to say that in our universe, nothing is remaining still. The only stillness that there really is beingness, which is indivisible. And the ultimate beingness, the absoluteness, is, as far as I can understand, absolutely still, because there are no divisions in it, and in order for there to be movement, there has to be division and number. So it's the realm of no number, in which there is what we call motion does not exist. Now, those are difficult concepts, and people struggle with them, and I've struggled with them, and we'll keep on struggling, but we have to understand the relationship between division and motion, and indivisibility and non-motion. Okay, so astronomical and astrological investigation has demonstrated this relationship. Okay, and the influences exerted, but there is still speculation and much foolish claiming and interpretation. Okay, yet the churches have ever recognized this relationship, and the Bible has testified to it. The stars in their courses fought against Sisera. I guess it's from the Old Testament, is it? Who can withstand the sweet influence of the Pleiades? Now, if it's sweet influence, it seems to have something to do with that. There's an amazing kind of triangle that involves Venus and the Pleiades. Let's see, if I were to look that thing up, and I was to say Jupiter. Yeah, it would be Leo and Jupiter, Leo, and what else? Great Bear, would it? Well, let me just see if I can find that very quickly. Okay, I'm trying to. Here it is. No, Jupiter. Okay, Leo and the Sun. Somewhere. And yes, I found it in Esoteric Astrology, page 416. The Pleiades, Cancer, and Venus. There it is, along with Great Bear, Aries, and Pluto, and then Sirius, Leo, and Jupiter. So this has a relationship to what we've just been reading, this Pleiades, Cancer, and Venus. Who can bind the sweet influence of the Pleiades? Venus, the planet of sweetness in that respect. Okay, so who can withstand the great influences of the Pleiades? Is it from the discussion about Job? Maybe. Suffice it to say, the Pleiades are connected with the constellation Cancer, and they are also connected with the planet Venus. So there you have triangles on very different levels. Sometimes you have them that are just planetary. Sometimes they are constellational with a planet involved. Sometimes they are only constellations. Sometimes they involve super constellations, zodiacal constellations, and planets. So let's see if I can, let's just say note for sweetness, Venus and Cancer, and then Pleiades. Yeah, okay. Well, there's just, so many relations here. The great science of relations, I sometimes think, is the greatest of all the sciences. It seems to embrace everything. Okay, and many other passages bear out this contention of the knowers. Now, many of the early church fathers, they were far from as ignorant as the church fathers to come, and they still had the classical learning in their consciousness, and they understood the mystical traditions, and they were members of internal occult schools. Plato was an initiate, maybe in the Eleusinian mysteries, and well, it seems like Pythagoras provided mysteries of his own, trying to work out, the incarnations of Pythagoras, Plato, Socrates, and so forth. Not the easiest thing, but they all seem to be related in a certain way. In other words, the church knows about astrology, is all I'm saying. Church knows the value of astrology. And let's just say, it is more the fundamentalist approaches which denigrate astrology. They say, well, the way you would warn a child, the way, don't touch that stove, it's hot, don't look into the astrological knowledge because it's, I don't know, of the devil, or it's not holy, it's, God doesn't approve and all that, but knowledge is knowledge, and it can be used for good or for ill. And so when scientifically and statistically it is proved that astrology does indicate the times and seasons which can be worked with intelligently, then the new church, of course, will take that into consideration and will not warn their people away from it, out of fear. Many church festivals are fixed by the reference to the moon or zodiacal constellation. I mean, we have Easter coming on the Sunday after the Aries full moon. That seems to be rather fixed. But there's been an attitude within the church, maybe in Catholicism, that the people do not have the intellectual possibilities to appreciate any of these things correctly, and so knowledge is withheld from them. But of course, now we have much more universal education, and even if there was no or very little education of the masses in the earlier days, it is no longer so, and people have the right to be exposed to esoteric knowledge, as it will help orient them to the wider possibilities and reduce the fear factor, which seems to hold them contained and at the mercy of the intermediary priesthood, the mediating priesthood, as if to say, oh, you can't do much without me. Well, Protestantism arose and said, okay, now we're going to stand up and we're going to have a direct contact with God, and it's not so necessary to have the priest tell us what is our relation with the higher aspects of divinity. So many church festivals are fixed by the reference to the moon and or a zodiacal constellation. Investigation will prove this to be increasingly the case, and when the ritual of the New World religion is universally established, this will be one of the important factors to consider. It looks like a singular, the ritual, and not rituals, but let's see whether, there are more than one. I mean, at least externally, we know that the first initiation will be given as a public event. Who can attend it, who is to say, and I'm not sure about the second initiation. There are possibilities there, but it's more esoteric, and maybe it will have to be attended by people in their astral bodies or something of that nature. I seem to remember that it goes both ways, that even the second initiation might be offered in a semi-public manner. The wonders of the new age are coming, and compared to where we stand now, they will be wonders indeed, and that's why we have to fight our way through these fearful reactionary tendencies which want to force us back into dependency upon matter and form. The establishing of certain major festivals in relation to the moon and in a lesser degree to the zodiac, and I would say in relation to the moon and probably its fullness or its newness, or on eclipses especially, and in a lesser degree to the zodiac, will bring a strengthening of the spirit of invocation and the resultant inflow of responsive influences. Well, we can see whether this is now the case, because, there are quite a few people all over the world of the more progressive persuasions that are using these full moon approaches. And so, even now we can see if this is happening. Remember, this was written 80 years ago, roughly, and now we've had a lot of time to distribute and enact full moon approaches and even new moon approaches and certain festivals associated with them. We just need an altogether more scientific, well-timed approach to divinity and utilizing the fifth ray and its method of measurement to determine when these things shall occur. The truth lying behind all invocation, he says, is based upon the power of thought, particularly in its telepathic nature and rapport and aspect. The unified invocative thought of the masses and the focused directed thought of the new group of world servers constitute an outgoing energy stream. This is really important, what's being said here. This will reach telepathically those spiritual beings who are sensitive and responsive to such impacts. Their evoked response, sent out as spiritual energy, will in turn reach humanity after having been stepped down into thought energy, and in that form will make its due impact upon the minds of men, convincing them and carrying inspiration and revelation. Thus it has ever been in the history of the spiritual unfoldment of the world, and in the procedure followed in writing through the world scriptures. Well, this is really important. So let's just say, Yeah, the unified invocative thought of the masses and the directed, yeah, focused, the directed thought of the new group of world servers constitute an outgoing stream of energy, and there is a response to this. And this is the way it will be in the future, and we're having a chance now to practice it, okay? So, very important paragraph, and I just want to say that, this is, all right, let's see if I can get there. This is a very important paragraph, if I can spell. And let's read it again. I think, bring it home to us. The truth lying behind all invocation is based upon the power of thought, particularly in its telepathic nature, rapport, and aspect. So, we pray, we meditate, we worship, and then finally, we really scientifically invoke. The unified invocative thought of the masses and the focused, directed thought of the new group of world servers constitute an outgoing stream of energy. This will reach telepathically those spiritual beings who are sensitive and responsive to such impacts. Their evoked response, sent out as spiritual energy, will in turn reach humanity after having stepped down into thought energy. I mean, we can't take the direct hit, I suppose. We wouldn't know what to do with it. And in that form will make its due impact upon the minds of men, convincing them, that's the point, and carrying inspiration and revelation. Right now, let's just say humanity remains, by and large, unconvinced of these matters, and our esoteric worldview, having been sustained through the sacrifice of many, because, of course, all of this approach was considered very satanic and evil, anything beyond the pale of the orthodoxy was to be rejected, and you often paid the price with your life, so hence the disguising of the teaching. But now that it is available, the true education of humanity in the realities of things will begin. Remember that the Christ was speaking to the masses in parables, but to his group, he spoke of the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. And so more and more people will be available that can understand what used to be considered the mysteries. And, there will be a convincingness. I guess the word convinced really strikes me here somewhere. Convincing, yeah. This word strikes me because, when reason is applied and there are no good reasons why it should not be so, then man adopts a different attitude to that which he used to reject because of fear. But now he can at least hypothetically accept these matters and maybe govern his behavior experimentally, cautiously, and see whether it is true or not. Okay, now I wonder where firstly was. Anyway, this has to do with secondly. All right. Maybe the one we just read through was the firstly. All right. Yes, I think we've just been somewhere dealing with firstly. Okay. Maybe you find it. I'm not going to go looking right now. Repeat part of what I said. Okay. And this is maybe from I think from the reappearance of the Christ, there appear to be seven pages here. Okay. Well, you find firstly, and I'll just go on to secondly, um, the establishing of a certain uniformity in the religious rituals will aid men everywhere to strengthen each other's work and enhance powerfully the thought currents directed to the waiting spiritual lives. So, greater uniformity among the um, rituals in the various religions. Things can come together. We don't have to look at these in a Martian six-ray separative manner as if they are worlds apart and utterly divided from each other. The commonalities of religions has to be understood. It helps, of course, to read the secret doctrine, and that really pulls things together. And we understand that there is behind all these religions a kind of a uniform perception that is more held within the perceptual possibilities of Shambhala, but humanity can grasp it as well. There's a lot of parallels here. You know, the seven Prajapatis, the seven spirits before the throne, there are all these septonates, and they appear in the different religions. So, they pretty much point to the same beings and the same relationships, and it's only our separative attitudes which have drawn hard and fast lines between world religions and promoted war between them. Okay, so it will help approach the waiting spiritual lives. At present, the Christian church has its great festivals, the Buddhist keeps his different set of spiritual events, and the Hindu has still another list of holy days. In the future world, when organized, all men of spiritual inclination and intention everywhere will keep the same holy days, and this will bring about a pooling of spiritual resources and a united spiritual effort, plus a simultaneous spiritual invocation, and the potency will be apparent. Indeed, and let's just say that your average doctrinaire individual reading this, no matter what his religion might be, will take great exception to it and will say, not my religion, mine is the only true religion, and God stopped speaking to man after the revelation on which my religion is based. Well, obviously, the foibles and limitations of humanity's concrete mind, plus the fear in his astral body, is apparent. Okay, but this is a great possibility. So, at present, the Christian church has its great festivals, the Buddhists, the Hindus, the Hebrews, the Taoists, whatever. They have their own methods and their own timing. And just imagine getting all that together based upon astronomical and energic fact. In other words, these are the energies that are available here. It will be proven, and we, all over the world, under whatever name we work, can approach these energies invocatively together and evoke them to be spread within the human race, and all to good effect. I guess, as always, there will be a fight for these things, and whether it is a precipitation like all the religious wars during the age of Pisces, or whether it's a slow working through on the basis of logic, reason, and scientific discovery, that's going to be up to humanity. Let's just hope it is the latter. I guess, there comes a time when humanity tires of blowing itself to bits and cutting itself into pieces. All of that is passé. And now we must really live up to the manas within our nature and to the higher manas, which can see more clearly and is not limited by the concrete perceptions. Well, now, okay, looks like we have finished about this point. 1 hour has elapsed, more or less, just about, and then we go on. Um, anyway, a little bit. I can always be called away, and I regret it, but then I just send on to you what I can. Let me indicate the possibilities of such spiritual events and prophesy the nature of the coming worldwide festivals. There will be 3 such major festivals each year, concentrated in 3 consecutive months and leading, therefore, to a prolonged spiritual effort which will affect the remainder of the year, and these will be. Okay, so he's prophesying this, even though, he did say Good Friday would disappear. I suppose it's because it's so much dealing with the crucifixion per se. Let me get this straightened out. Always, there's a little problem here. And, let's see about the Wesak Festival, which, at least in its present form, with the Buddha taking those 8 minutes to bless humanity, will be given over to another form. And at some point, I was reading here, and I think I mentioned it, that it looked like the Christ might take that over. Of course, he is involved in the Wesak Festival as the point of invocation, and the Buddha is evoked. Anyway, there was this thought that for a few more decades, and that was 1946, that the Wesak Festival would be celebrated as it was, but then maybe around 1981, it would change. And Mary Bailey, I remember, working there in the Arcane School and the Lucis Trust. And in 1981, she tried to get across to us that the whole pattern there might be changing, and that a new way of receiving the higher energies might be in place. Let's just say it all depends on the capabilities of the new group of world servers, I would say. Both are ruled by Taurus. It's the Taurus time of year, and it's the new group of world servers ruled, in essence, by Taurus. And how strongly can that new group invoke, and where will the evocation come from? If not the Buddha any longer, then how and from whom? In what way will Shambhala be evoked? And will it be in some way through the Christ? So, these are all speculations. And I came in this reading upon that section that was discussing the possible change in the way the Wesak was conducted, and it seemed that the Christ would be more involved and maybe in a different role. So, time will tell. We do not know the changes and adaptations and the timing of them that occur in the inner and higher worlds. The time equation there is not in our hands. But let's just say there's a close study of the way humanity has responded to its opportunities, and then adaptations occur within hierarchy, and I suppose within Shambhala, in terms of whatever emissary it is that may bless the world and humanity at that time. Okay, so he's going to prophesy 3 such major events, and I don't think that this is a new idea to us, the high points of the spiritual year. So first of all, there will be the festival of Easter. This is the festival of the risen, living Christ, the teacher of all men and the head of the spiritual hierarchy. He is the expression of the love of God. On this day, it's, sometimes here in the more towards Russia and the Central Europe, Eastern Europe rather, it seems to be 2 days, but okay, the day. On this day, the spiritual hierarchy which he guides and directs will be recognized, and the nature of God's love will be emphasized. The festival is determined always by the date of the first full moon of spring and is the Great Western and Christian Festival. Okay, well, here we have some very nice encapsulations of how DK sees these festivals. And of course, if you've been associated with the Arcane School, you'll recognize that many of these have been lifted, let's just say these statements have been published in the pamphlets and so forth. Okay, the Festival of the Risen Living Christ. Now, interestingly, the resurrection initiation is ruled by the second ray. It has much of the first ray of Aries in it too as well, but it's ruled by the second ray. And just the way the sixth initiation is ruled by the Libra and the third ray, and the fifth initiation by the first ray. And then comes some combinations of rays to rule the eighth and ninth initiation. I believe it is the 4 rays of attribute ruling the eighth initiation, and the 3 rays of aspect ruling the ninth initiation. If we were to look at the rays initiations, page 320, maybe we would see that there are no hits. Rays and can it be? What is this? 3-2. Okay, 320 should be page 320. Something's wrong. Sorry. Okay, I'll get rid of this. The rays and initiations. Let's try again. All right, I think what I'll do is turn this off for a second. Well, just having a little trouble with the Alice Bailey CD-ROM, but as I suggested, here we are on page 320 of the rays and the initiations. Is that correct? 340. 340. Okay. And we have the 4 minor rays ruling the initiation of transition, and the 3 major rays, the initiation of refusal. So now if I'm going to, this is the browse, and let's try if 340 is possible. Yes, it is. So there must have been something about page 320 which was not really recorded. I don't know. In any case, the festival of Easter comes first. And it's the love of God, interestingly enough. And let's just say also the restoration of the divine plan. The restoration. Now, the forces of enlightenment should be coming here. So let's just see how this looks. Okay, and I'll make it a little bigger, and the Festival of the Waysack, and still bigger, I would suppose. Let's see how I did over here. Yeah. So what does it say here? This is the Festival of the Buddha. Okay, and I suppose that the new group of world servers will be teaching the principles of accepted discipleship. We're told that it was the Buddha's foundational teaching that made possible the understanding of real discipleship, accepted discipleship, but also that his students were numbered among the arhats, so they were becoming arhats, something of that nature. That's much higher than the students who are with the initiate Jesus and especially the Christ. So they were more, it seems, initiates of the first and second degree, possibly under his guidance, and not arhats. The Festival of the Waysack. This is the Festival of the Buddha. the spiritual intermediary between the highest spiritual center, Shambhala, and the hierarchy. The Buddha is the expression of the wisdom of God also, the embodiment of light and the indicator of divine purpose. I guess we would expect that to be coming out of Shambhala. This will be fixed annually in relation to the full moon of May, as is at present the case. It is the great Eastern festival. Now, sometimes, these occur slightly off. Now, Easter can occur in March with that full moon, and the Wesak can occur in April. We know that. I'm going to just put these a little into the highlighting zone. Okay. So, this is the forces of light are released at this time, and, we're told that those are very high forces. When we study that the forces of light bring illumination to mankind, we're talking about very, very high energies on the higher levels of the cosmic physical plane. So the forces of enlightenment are here indicated. Well, Taurus brings the light, and sometimes, when I think about Master DK, it's not only in terms of the Gemini influence, which is obvious, because he is the messenger of the hierarchy, and he worked with these different Geminis, Alice Bailey's Sun in Gemini, Foster Bailey, Gemini rising, Mary Bailey's Sun in Gemini, and Leo rising, just as Alice Bailey, Sun in Gemini, Leo rising, but the ray was different, okay. But he is definitely Gemini, but then there is this whole incredible illumination and this practicality that suggests to me Taurus. I don't know, but that's what is suggested. So many of these great saviors seem to have a lot of Pisces too. When it comes to Master KH, we're given Gemini and Pisces. When it comes to the Buddha, there's a strong hint in some of the things DK wrote to the disciples' degree that it was going to be Taurus and Pisces. And let's see, is there anybody? Well, the Christ, of course, Pisces and Libra, the Prince of Peace plus the great Savior. Okay, now the Festival of Goodwill. It's called by so many names: Festival of Humanity, Festival of the Christ. Some people in the East might call it the Asala Festival. Okay, Festival of Goodwill. And let's make that a little bigger. Okay, this will be the festival of humanity, aspiring towards God, seeking conformity with the will of God, and dedicated to the expression of right human relations. I think let's make that a little bigger. And let's, there. This will be fixed annually in relation to the full moon of June. Sometimes it happens a little bit earlier in May. It will be a day whereon the spiritual and divine nature of mankind will be recognized. Because, Gemini is always dual, and we recognize the personality nature of humanity, but sometimes it's difficult for us to come to grips with God immanent and God within us, the higher part of the pairs of opposites. It will be a day whereon the spiritual and divine nature of mankind will be recognized on this festival for 2,000 years. Just think. The Christ has represented humanity and has stood before hierarchy and in the sight of Shambhala as the God-man, the leader of his people, and, quote, the eldest in a great family of brothers, close quote from Romans 8 and 29. Each year at this time, he has preached the last sermon of the Buddha before the assembled hierarchy. This will therefore be a festival of deep invocation and appeal, of a basic aspiration towards fellowship of human and spiritual unity and will represent the effect in the human consciousness of the work of the Buddha and the Christ. Beautiful synopses here, and the forces of reconstruction are here accessed. And we've been dealing a lot with these Gemini forces as we read the externalization of the hierarchy here, because remember, we're somehow in this series of essays, we're still in the middle of the war. I think it's 1943 somewhere, and he hasn't spoken much about what happened when the sun moved northward in 1942. He will speak of that. That essentially was when the possible enslavement of humanity was thwarted by the Lords of Liberation. Anyway, he's looking so much after the war, and the forces of reconstruction are very prominent in his discussion. These three festivals are already being kept throughout the world, indeed, though they are not as yet related to each other, and as part of the unified approach and of humanity. And the time is coming when all three festivals will be kept simultaneously throughout the world, and by their means, a great spiritual unity will be achieved, and the effects of the great approach so close to us, so close to us, and what is that? That is the EXHH. To us at this time will be stabilized by the united invocation of humanity throughout the planet. So let's just say we all will be keeping the same festivals, and will celebrate the energetic content of these festivals by no matter what name we call the festivals. Now, some people will look at that with great anticipation and say that's going to be wonderful, and other people will be horrified that the purity of their one and only religion will be somehow compromised by mixture with other religious traditions. You can only think of the way the British conquerors came to India in the, I don't know exactly when, but they were there in the 18th century and certainly in the 19th century, and they looked upon the Hindu religions as a much lower form than their Christianity, a form of idolatry. They, by and large, they didn't get into the depth of what lay behind the symbolism that the English, took literally. Who was taking what literally? The Hindus took it symbolically, and the British took it literally. Anyway, by whatever name we call these, the same energies are available, and the science of invocation and evocation will prove that this is the case. So basically what we're talking about here and looking forward to is the full moon approaches, which we all now do really celebrate. I mean, those of us who are in the Bailey tradition and who are passing this kind of knowledge on to others. The remaining full moons will constitute lesser festivals, but will be recognized to be also of vital importance. I'm thinking about this festival of Leo, where the entire hierarchy is recognized by Sanat Kumara. It's an important one. They will establish the divine attributes, not so much the aspects, but the attributes in the consciousness of man, just as the major festivals establish the three divine aspects. I suppose light, love, and power. There's a lot of the shambolic content in the Wesak festival. There's much of the love in Easter. And I suppose Gemini is the third sign, although it does bring in the second ray, but being the third sign of the zodiac, it will have a lot to do with intelligent restoration of those areas of human life which are um, in sad repair. I mean, when you see how some people have to live, it's just we cannot sustain that kind of vision. Living off of the garbage. The year is 2019, but there's no water right now in Venezuela, so the people are going to the sewage to get their water. This is not permissible. This is not permissible. Okay, so these aspects and qualities will be arrived at and determined by a close study of the nature of a particular constellation or constellations influencing those months. So that makes sense, of course. Okay, we do that now. We study carefully. We talk about each sign and what a person or a group can absorb from the energy let loose or made available at particular times, and especially at the moment of the full moon. For instance, Capricorn, December, usually, sometimes January, will call attention to the first initiation, the birth of the Christ in the cave of the heart, as it always does at Christmas, doesn't it? You can feel that, can we not? And indicate the training needed to bring about that great spiritual event in the life of the individual man. And I give this one instance to you in order to indicate the possibilities for spiritual unfoldment that could be given through an understanding of these influences and in order to revivify the ancient faiths by expanding them into their larger, undying relationships. Well, every one of these festivals can give something to humanity which it really needs as it is attempting to progress on the spiritual path. Um, and there are any number of qualities associated with each of these zodiacal constellations and signs of the zodiac. Fresh beginnings in Aries, and well, of course, those are the three major ones. But let's just say the study of identity in Leo, the purification of Virgo, the whole idea of right human relations in Libra, conquest and triumph in Scorpio, becoming one-pointed in your discipleship, your aspirations in Sagittarius, and so forth. Sharing, serving in Aquarius, somehow loving and absorbing and identifying in Pisces, a kind of occult obedience. And I may have skipped Cancer there, where the integration of the human being and of the human groups and of humanity becomes possible. There are many levels in which these signs can be interpreted, as we well know. And we can present it in such a way to the people that it will be of use to them, and disciples may use it in a different way. Let's see now if I was to look at this. Yes, the next little tabulation is quite interesting because, well, Shambhala does come in at Wesak, doesn't it? Shambhala, the will aspect of God, Wesak, and the May full moon in Taurus. But sometimes, of course, when you look at the forces of enlightenment, you don't particularly think of the Shambhala except for the unfettered enlightenment of Shambhala, but usually think about love and light or the second and third aspect. So there are different ways of approaching this hierarchy, the love aspect of God, and it's Easter, the April full moon, sometimes March. Now, the thing about that is that the first ray of resurrection associated with Aries, I think, is to be considered along with it. But at that seventh initiation of resurrection, the true resurrection, it is the second ray that rules, and so that fits with the love aspect of God. And then humanity, which in this sequence does represent the third ray, Shambhala first, hierarchy second, humanity third, and Gemini being the third sign, divine intelligence is suitable, and goodwill is love in action. Action has to do with the third ray, but we have to remember that Gemini is also the head of the cosmic Christ, so it has something of the first ray because it's the head. The cosmic Christ is the great second ray, and that comes through Gemini, and at the moment is the only ray that DK lists is coming through Gemini, but you can see the connection with the third ray, it being the third sign, so the June full moon and sometimes late May. So at least in this distribution, in this tabulation, we find the following rays given, and associated with each of these festivals. And I wonder, when we celebrate the festivals, do we think of these particular rays? I mean, is it love at Easter? Or is it that tremendous power of liberation onto the logoic plane? And is it the Shambhala connection at Wesak, or is it the great enlightenment, which is very much associated with the second ray, and to a degree with the third? And when we study our work at the Festival of the Christ and the Great Invocation and so forth, do we think in terms of the third ray and humanity as the throat center? Because after all, it's a day of invocation. The throat, is involved. Or do we think also of the second ray, which Gemini distributes? So we have to just see this all from different angles. Obviously, if a planet has all the rays, then we can be sure that a constellation of Lord working through a constellation of the zodiac has all of the rays, but we're looking at what is most prominent at a particular time. Okay, and then of course there'll be planetary representatives here as well. I mean, you can think of all these connections, but the main thing is the 1, 2, 3 connection we're being offered here, and then from another tabulation we have forces of restoration, forces of enlightenment, and forces of reconstruction. Okay, the remaining 9 full moons will be concerned with the divine characteristics and their development in mankind. And, incarnations are chosen on the basis of what needs to be built into the causal body according to the sun sign and the rising sign. All of this is a science, and the solar angel of the presence, is working to make sure that its subject, or that which is subject to it, the human being, the extension of the human monad, receives what is necessary to continue the building of the causal body. So thus the 12 festivals will constitute a revelation of divinity. And in quite a technical way too, not just some vague worship of God, but a well-timed, scientifically discriminated revelation of divinity. They will present a means of bringing about relationship, first of all during 3 months, with the great spiritual centers, and 3 expressions of the Divine Trinity, and the minor festivals will emphasize the interrelation of the whole, thus lifting the divine presentation out of the individual and the personal into that of the universal divine purpose. The relationship of the whole to the part and the part to the whole will therefore be fully expressed. So, in a way, the scientific nature of the New World religion is being advanced here, being discussed, and the reasons for its great value in the advancement of humanity is being offered. And, somehow we will really be integrated into the wholeness in most specific ways according to our nature during these festivals, and we will understand where we belong and what we have to do, and the vagueness will be removed. We've been through the age of Pisces. I mean, there are many brilliant people in Pisces, and they can have, very strong fifth ray and whatever, like France, Pisces in the fifth ray in the soul nature. But let's just say that the Aquarian mind is very, very sharp and very connected with the fifth ray. And so we're going to know with some exactitude where we stand in relation, what we are, where we stand in relation to each other, what our goal and destiny has to be, how specifically we have to work, how we are to invoke, what formulas are to be used. That's the whole thing. When you hear a word like formula, there's a scientific presentation behind it, which guarantees, if the formula is properly used, a certain evocation, a certain response. And that's the way we're going to operate during the age of Aquarius. And even now, we are given the opportunity to begin doing something of that nature. We're given certain words of power. We're given some great invocations. And we are learning how to practice invocation so that the evocation which results will really help humanity clear its way through this illusion, glamour, and maya in which it is presently mired. Okay, humanity will therefore invoke the spiritual powers of the kingdom of God, the hierarchy. The hierarchy will respond, and God's plans will then be worked out on earth. The hierarchy on the higher turn of the spiral will invoke the center of God's will, Shambhala or Shangri-La. He throws that in there so, we in the West can relate to it, thus invoking the purpose of God. Thus will the will of God be implemented by love and manifested intelligently. For this mankind is ready, and for this the earth waits. It's very beautiful. It gives us a great anticipation of things to come. Notice he's skipping quite a bit here. We went from 1943 and we're about to begin 1984. Well, I think what I'd like to do is just keep this as a program that is not too long. It's about, it's about 1.5 hours have passed. And I think I don't know where we are. Before it's just a five pager here. But that's what I'd like to do. And and then, realizing that I may be called upon at any time to do other things. This is the end of number 41. It's about 1 hour and, let's say 35 minutes. And we're dealing with page 418 to 423. And this is the 12th of March. And now we're going to start program number 42, if I can see my way clear to it. And the date will be maybe the 12th of March, just today. And we'll go from page 423. Okay, everybody, this is, really interesting. I'm just noting how he's jumped from the middle of 1943 to 1944, the Festival of Aries, approximately 1944, and it makes me wonder, what went on in between times. The great crisis was averted, and here in these series of essays, at this point, he did not say how it was averted, but a little bit later on in this book, he will say how the crisis was averted and how human invocation made that possible, and how the Lords of Liberation did respond. It's such a incredible experiment going on this planet, and we are in a period of crisis for sure. But maybe some of the worst crises have passed. We have plenty to deal with coming up. Okay, thank you for your presence, and we will proceed. See you soon for number 42.